So I guess the moral to the story is we cannot afford to play it safe in education anymore. As educators, as educational leaders, it is a must. It is essential that we swing for the fence every day.
I love it.
No.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, I'm just saying, because in order for us to get our students and to get our teachers where they need to be, just getting to first base is not good enough anymore. We are in a very challenging time in public education where it's going to take the best of us doing everything in our ability every day, everywhere, with everyone, for us to truly change the perception and to truly change the trajectory of public education.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Matthew Mason, and you know I am the proud host of the Hot Conversations with School Leaders podcast. Just a reminder, remember, HOT stands for honest, open, and transparent. The goal of this is to drop some free gems for you all the time. For those of us who are getting in the leadership journey in education, it is a beautiful job. It is a tough job, but want to make sure that you have all the support you need as you get into it. I know I say this all the time. I've said every time I have a guest on here that this is going to be a special episode. This is going to be an incredible guest. I am very, very honored to have this individual on here, because there are many of the guests that I have on here who know this individual, who shout out this individual. For many of us, this is the person who made school leadership look like something that was not just attainable, but something that you really wanted to do. I actually taught this individual's daughter. When I first got into teaching, he was the individual who told me that, like, hey, I think this is something that you would be good at, that you would be able to get into. I'll be honest with you, I never wanted to be a teacher, never wanted to be in education. And so when he said that, it was like, oh, all right, well, let's see what this thing is. I've worked in the same building as this individual. He has been a teacher. He's been a principal. He's been assistant superintendent, and now he's doing an incredible job as the superintendent of Surry County Public Schools in Virginia. I have with me the incredible Dr. Herbert Monroe. How you doing, sir?
Man, I am blessed, highly favored, extremely excited to be here with you. It is just, as I say, a plum pleasing pleasure to see you succeeding, and as I say, thriving and not just surviving. And you actually mentioned something, man, that I just want to just start out of the gate. We have an obligation as educational leaders to actually identify and to select and to tap folks like yourself, who we know are not only outstanding educators, but who also have the potential and the capacity to lead. Matthew, I know you haven't asked any questions yet, but man, I'm going to tell you, less than 2% of all educators in the United States are men of color. And we're an endangered species that will soon become extinct. If people like yourself and I do not continue to tap not only young brothers, but just good people to make sure that, my children and my grandchildren will be in good hands as they continue their educational journey. Because as you know, I believe that education is the great equalizer, because it will open doors and it'll allow access and opportunity for our future. So again, thank you for having me on the show today. And I'm just elated to spending quality time with you. So thank you.
Yes, sir. It's funny. I remember a time when I think maybe we met at Charlie's, and it was you and it was a bunch of us. It was a couple of us. And that is something my wife said to me actually this morning. We're talking about what does it mean to be a master teacher. And a lot of times for me, I think of a master teacher as somebody who just is really good at teaching, knows the skills, knows the pedagogy, all the different things. But she helped change my mind, and I'm going somewhere with this, that a master teacher is somebody who can produce other master teachers. And so it started changing that producing mind for me. It was like, oh, as being a good principal, I can say I'm a good principal if I'm producing other good principals. I can say I'm a good superintendent if I'm producing other individuals who can take what I'm doing. And again, the goal is to help students learn, right? To connect with families, help students learn. So I'm saying it all to you is because you also have a track record. So this isn't just I think I'm good at what I do. You have people like a great coach, football coach in their coaching tree. You
Right.
have a tree of school leaders who are like, no, I either worked under, learned from, spent time with Dr. Monroe, and it's seen in what we do every day. Like I think of stuff regularly of what you either did or things you've told me as I'm leading in a building. So I want to tell you thank you for your work, because it is work. Like it's not just I'm going out there with kids. Like I'm actually pouring into the next group of leaders.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna just say Eminem, man. You know what? As Kendrick Lamar would say, I guess that's controversial, but it's about being humble. So
Yeah.
be humble, be
Be
humble,
humble.
and I'm blessed, man, because both of my parents were educators. My dad was an elementary principal in Henrico. My mom was a middle school principal in Henrico, and my parents said, "Whatever you do, Herbie," that's what they called me. They said, "Do not go into education." And like all good kids, man, we listened to our parents. But I'm gonna tell you what's crazy, man. It was my college wrestling coach who said I had a gift of working with kids, and again, kids will not do what they think they can do. They will do what the adults around them empower them to do. And it was my
Yes.
coach that said, "You have this gift. I don't know if you know it or not. You have this gift." I went to school, man, little place called Lock Haven University, which is about 30 miles down the road from Penn State. I actually pledged my fraternity at Penn State, and I was a founding brother at Lock Haven. But I say that to say there were only 89 African Americans at Lock Haven University um, in that time, late 80s, early 90s, out of about 7 to 8,000 students, 89 of
Oh wow.
us. And what I did was I actually was the director of the elementary wrestling camp. Now I'm gonna tell you, the culture in Pennsylvania, parents would drop their first, second, and third graders off at a college university on a Sunday night
Wow.
and pick them up on a Thursday morning. And I was like the Pied Piper, man. I literally had about 100 elementary kids on a college campus sleeping in dorms. And let me just tell you, man, I was in charge of them, but of course I had a team underneath me. And what was amazing is, we had to take these kids to breakfast. They used to take Fruit Loops and Cheerios, go to the ice cream machine because we were in a college university, and have soft serve ice cream go over top of their Cheerios in the morning. And we had to negate all of that. I was pulling teeth, changing sheets, and I would call parents, man, during the week. Oh, I got to call my mommy. I'm homesick. The parents said, "Leave them there. They'll be fine." Because they're with you. And what was powerful, man, is people would call Lock Haven, call Coach Turner, and say, "Is Herb going to be on the curb?" Because I used to greet parents. And I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going somewhere
Yes.
with this. I
I
used to
feel like I
greet
know where
parents.
you're going with this.
I used to greet parents in cars on the curb. And they used to say, Herb on the curb. And I used to welcome these people onto campus. And then I would meet with parents, meet with kids, and let them know that their child, first and foremost, is going to be safe. And then I would go through all of what we would do during the week. So as the kids were registering and getting acclimated, because my team would take the kids to the dorm and show them how to make their beds and whatever, I would actually be meeting with parents. And what was really powerful is when parents came to pick their kids up on Thursday, we actually put on a clinic because parents paid, about $300. That was a lot of money back in the 91 to pay $300 for a 5-day camp. But my kids would put on a clinic for their parents. So the parents would come into the field house,
Oh
sit in
wow.
the bleachers, and these elementary kids would actually run out on the mat with their partner, go through their drills on their feet, their drills on the mat, their pinning combinations, and then verbally share what they learned and what they got out of the camp. And these were elementary kids, man. So the point I'm trying to make is you're always an educator.
Mhm.
I was 22 years old. in my senior year. And I had learned from the mentors above me because I started doing wrestling camp when I was 18 years old as a freshman. So, as I go through my 5 years of college, man, I kind of went up the ranks and became the director of the elementary camp. And, parents began to request me. What was very unique, though, is in education, we have something called a sense of belonging, right? People
Yes.
people throw that phrase out. And is it okay if I keep talking for a minute? I
Yeah,
know I'm
you
kind
look. So I'm going to say this for all of my listeners. This is like a coaching session. All these things for me. Like I will not interrupt Dr. Monroe as he speaks because every time I listen to Dr. Monroe, I'm getting stuff. You're hearing the energy, you're hearing the passion that we have to have in order to lead buildings and lead communities. So, no, sir, you go for it.
All right, and I don't know if people can see this. My eyes get red because when I get passionate, I kind of swell up. I don't want people to think I'm having a heart attack or anything like that. It's just love and passion coming out. So bear with me. But if you want to take out your pencil or your pen or your cell phone or whatever, this is teach time because I want to make sure that people understand what a sense of belonging really is.
Yes,
It
sir.
is really 5 things, and I'm going to break it down like this. Number one, when you talk about a sense of belonging, when I was greeting and meeting cars on the curb, Herb on the curb, it's the same thing I did as a teacher when I'm standing in the hallway meeting and greeting kids coming into my classroom. It was the same thing I was doing as a building level principal when I'm on the bus ramp or on the car ramp, opening up doors, saying good morning to parents and to students to make sure that they saw a warm, smiling, loving face every day. That is key. Relationships is key. So the first thing is safety. And that means that as a leader, as an educator, you have to ensure that your environment is physically and socially and emotionally safe. Are you hearing me? You may not believe this, but I was the black kid with an IEP. I was a severe stutterer. And I was captain of the wrestling team in high school. I'm also a musician. I was drumline captain, but I was a severe stutterer. So what happened in high school when we sat in rows and we had to read orally? In 11th grade, we read a novel called Moby Dick. I think Moby Dick has like 402 pages, maybe 306 pages. The bottom line is I was not emotionally safe. Why? Because when we sat in rows, I used to count the paragraphs of those sitting in front of me. I used to count the rows and I used to say, okay, today I'm going to have to read paragraph 11 because there were 11 people in front of me. Now, the fact that I had to think about that created a level of anxiety that felt like I was having a heart attack. I have this vein right here that would pop out of my skull. My chest felt like it was going to explode in my chest. My palms started sweating. And remember, both of my parents worked for Henrico County Public Schools. I was at Hermitage High School, and as the captain of the wrestling team and as the drumline captain, I did not feel socially and emotionally safe. So I'm going to say, Mason, what do you think I did as an 11th grader in that situation?
So I'm not gonna lie, if I'm listening to it, I mean, I'm gonna do whatever I can in places where I'm successful. I'm gonna definitely focus on those, and in areas that I'm not successful, I'm gonna do my best not to go to those things. Right? I feel like that's human nature.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did all of those things. I was late for
Gotcha.
class some days. I would, my stomach hurt. Can I go to the nurse? Can I go to the bathroom? One day it got so crazy, I took the drumstick out of my bag and actually poked the girl in the behind sitting in front of me. Now, she was a friend of mine, and I knew, it was going to be whatever. But I
Yeah.
was doing things to get kicked out of class. And then at that moment, my administrator, and there's a story behind this, man. This is we're connected. My administrator, his name was Mr. Pike. Now, mind you, Mr. Pike left Hermitage High School as an assistant principal and became principal at Lakeside Elementary School. There's a story there. I'm in high school as an
Yes, sir.
11th grader. This guy, my senior year, leaves Hermitage as an assistant principal and becomes principal at Lakeside Elementary. I'm just playing seeds right now. All right. So what he says was, he said, Herbie, I don't know why you keep, I don't know what's going on, but he said, I need to understand, how are you feeling? Like help me to understand what's going on. So I told him straight up, man, I'm not reading out loud because I stutter. I got an IEP. You can look at my record. I got case manager. So he said, well, let's talk to your counselor. So then he took me to speak to my counselor. My counselor actually, told me, she said, well, look, let me talk to the teacher because there's probably some things we can do about it. So, man, do you know that the teacher, when she found out what was happening with me, she told me all these famous people who actually are stutterers, such as James Earl Jones. And I know James Earl Jones did like Star Wars,
Yes, sir.
Conan the Barbarian. He did, we know his voice was behind a lot of different things, right? So what my teacher told me to do, she said, Herbie, you're a pretty animated guy. That hadn't changed too much, right? She said, you're a
Right.
pretty animated guy. She said, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to tell you what you're going to have to read in class, and I want you to perform it. I don't want you to read it. I want you to perform it. And man, Mason, let me just tell you, the next day, I couldn't wait to get to class because I was going to perform my paragraph, right? Do you know when it got to me, man, I basically had it memorized by that point. I did my thing. And my classmates applauded for me because they knew I stuttered. So it wasn't a matter of being embarrassed. It was a matter of being celebrated. Now, I shared this story. I shared this story to anyone listening because I mean what I say about you have to know your kids to a point to where they demand you, their parents request you, and you want to create a culture and an environment where people want to be around you. It's all about how do you make other people feel when they're in your presence. I think that is so important. So the first thing, and that's a life lesson there, is about a sense of belonging. You have to be physically, socially, and emotionally safe. Take out your pencil because I'm giving you number 2. Number 2, it's all about being valued. Students have to have a sense of purpose, and they have to be valued, and they have to know that whatever they're bringing to you matters. And you have to find a way to make sure that they know that they matter. Okay. I know we always talk about, we have to accept students as they are, meet kids where they are. Parents send us the best they have. All of that is true. But my question to you is, what do you do to make sure students are valued? Well, I'm going to tell you some of the things I do. Okay. I make sure I visit my kids in their community. When I was a principal, I used to take my teachers on bus rides and field trips to
Yes, sir.
Essex, to neighborhoods, in the community, because I want them to see their students in their community. The other thing that I do is I become the fabric of the environment. When I became principal, I used to go to the swimming pools in the summer. I go to the baseball fields. I go to the football fields. I go to the dance recitals. I eat at the restaurants. I work out in the gyms. You want to be everywhere all the time. I even go to church. I go to different churches because I say people have a different view when they're behind and sitting in the pew. Did you hear what I said?
Yes,
Hear
sir.
what I said? And a lot of times you can reach people that way. And when I see kids, I don't just say hello. When I see kids, I call them by their name and I ask them something about themselves. Like I'll say, hey, Matthew, how are your kids doing? How's your wife doing? How you liking in Lynchburg? I remember you left, So I really try to find out something deep about them to make a real connection. Because as we say, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But it has to be real and authentic. Okay? So valued is number 2. Number 3 is kids have to be empowered. Okay? I hope you're writing this down. Kids have to be empowered. And what that means is the right amount of voice and choice. For example, something that we instituted in Carolina, I'm very proud about, is we now have student, teacher, parent conferences. Do you know how powerful it is for a second grader to pull out their portfolio and to tell mom and dad what their goals are, how they're doing academically, behaviorally, socially, emotionally, and attendance-wise, and to tell mom and dad their grows and their glows and what they're going to do the next 6, 9 weeks or semesters to reach their goals.
Yeah.
And what do you think that does for engagement and parent participation when it comes to conferences? So students, are advocates of their own education. That's just one little thing. There's a plethora of other things, that you can do.
Dr. Monroe, real quick. So when you did that, I'm gonna be honest, you've hit on so many things. I hope we can get to all the things. So when you did that, did y'all just do that for elementary school, or did the middle school also, and then the high school do that with the student, teacher, parent
What we did was a
meetings?
soft launch.
Okay.
What we did is we started at one elementary school.
Okay.
Of course, we provided some professional development, some models for teachers, templates for students, graphic organizers, if you will, and whatever. And it's something that we did at one elementary school, and then we took it to all elementary schools, and then we took it to the middle school. I don't know if it made its way to the high school, but that's
Yeah.
something that could be possible. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it actually made its way to the middle school, and it was very, very successful. And it gave students more of a purpose and a reason why they needed
Right.
to succeed, not only in school, and it kind of carried over into some of the things that they do outside of school and in life. So that was really, really powerful as well. So again, you talk about safety, you talk about value, you talk about empowerment, which leads me to number 4 is that we all have to model being lifelong learners. So students have to know that they're learning, and teachers have to continue growing and learning. And then students need to see that being modeled by the adults, and the adults need to be the role models for the students. And also, we need to bring that learning also to parents, to community, to our school boards, to our board of supervisors, and all of our elected officials. So that part is very key as well. And there's, a plethora of different ways to learn. I drive an hour and 10 minutes to work. So right now, I'm excited about my drive because it gives me an opportunity to do my Audible, where I actually do voice books.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is I got like 3 books going right now, and I'm trying to go to Audible real quick. I'm not trying to take up all your time
Oh no,
today.
you're fine.
Or right now, man, I'm reading The Servant. Like, I don't know if you can see it.
Yep. Yes, sir.
That is my latest piece on Audible, and it says a simple story about the true essence of leadership by James Hunter. And it's really powerful because the one thing that I've always believed in, but to see it in black and white kind of makes it true to you, is people don't transfer schools. People don't
Mhm.
leave divisions. People transfer leadership.
Yeah.
People people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know my dad used to say that. And it's just good to continue to fine tune your leadership and your leadership capacity, because we all have areas of growth. We can all be better. So what I do is I try to use every minute of the day to the utmost. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So number 4 is learning, and I'm going to close with number 5, because number 5 I think is the most important one. Number 5 is, if we want teachers and leaders and students and parents to be innovative and to think outside the box, we have to create a culture where people can make mistakes without losing their dignity.
I love it. Yes.
You hear what I'm
Hmm.
saying? We have
Yes.
to create a culture where people can make mistakes without punishment and without losing their dignity. Because what happens is, if you have an environment where that culture does not exist, people are afraid. And we know that fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. And when people are afraid, you don't get their best work. You don't get their best work. And, I'm going to give you an example. Like I said, I don't know how much time I have, man, but, I got 1,000
You good.
stories.
You
When I
good.
was at Lock Haven, I'm going to go back to college. When I was at Lock Haven, man, we used to do the wrestling camps, and we used to play wiffle ball during the breaks. We would have 3 sessions a day. In between each session, we would have like an hour and a half break where the kids would go to lunch or take a nap or go to the swimming pool or whatever. And the coaches would hang out, and we would play wiffle ball in between the breaks. And what was so cool, now that I look back on it being 57 years old, is the losing team would have to buy the winning team the refreshments and the food at night, if you know what I'm saying, right? Now, as a 20, 21-year-old college kid, I didn't have money all the time for adult beverages and pizza and cheesesteaks and hot wings and all of that. So these wiffle ball games were intense. And most wrestlers, as you can imagine, we are pretty intense people anyway. We don't like losing at checkers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was intense. But here is the story. Here is the real lesson. How do you hit a home run? Well, the only way to hit a home run is to swing for the fence. I was so fast in college, I would never swing for the fence. I would just make contact with the ball because I could always outrun the throw to first base. So those that know wiffle ball, baseball, hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I would play it safe, make contact with the ball, and I could always outrun the throw to first base. So I always got on first base. Well, there was one time, Mason, where the score was actually 4-3, or we were losing by 3 runs. The kids were coming into the gym for the afternoon session. And back then, we didn't have air conditioning in the field house. There were 2 levels. There at the bottom level, which was separated by a big rail, and then you had the upper tier. And if you hit the ball over the first rail, that was a home run, like knocking it out of the park. But the windows were open, the front doors, the back doors were open. They had the big helicopter fans in the top and whatnot. Long story short, for the first time in my life, I had to hit a home run because I was the last batter on my team before the session started. Now, I will tell you, I swung with all my might, missed the first pitch, let the second one go by, foul tipped the third pitch. The fourth pitch came. I actually hit the ball so hard, it went over the second rail, through the corridor and out into the true story. Out and literally knocked the ball out of the gym, and I had a grand slam, and we won the game. I tell that story to tell people that sometimes you have to give it your all. My whole thing from the story is, why don't we give our all the time? What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of striking out? I will tell you, if you give your all the time, you will be amazed at what you achieve. Because guess what, Matthew? After hitting my first home run, do you think I hit home runs after that?
Yes.
You better believe it. You better believe it. I started swinging for the fence every time I got up to the plate after that. And sometimes I hit a home run, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I made contact with the ball that wasn't a home run, but I always outran the throw to first base. So I guess the moral to the story is we cannot afford to play it safe in education anymore. As educators, as educational leaders, it is a must. It is essential that we swing for the fence every day.
I love it.
No,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, I'm just saying, because in order for us to get our students and to get our teachers where they need to be, just getting to first base is not good enough anymore. We are in a very challenging time in public education where it's going to take the best of us doing everything in our ability every day, everywhere, with everyone, for us to truly change the perception and to truly change the trajectory of public education. And as leaders, we really have to create those 5 conditions, in my opinion, to ensure that those that we lead feel safe enough to give it their all. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, so we've got the safety, we've got value, we've got empowerment, we got lifelong learning, and then not having the fear of failure. Like, if you can capture those 5, right, and then let me know if I'm correct on those. If you capture those 5, then I think you're on your way of impacting and your community and your cult and the families around you. You said something though that I thought was very powerful with you hitting the home run, because now you already knew what you could do, right? You knew that if I hit this ball a little bit, I can get the first. Like, I can always do that. I can do that in my sleep. But now that were able to hit the home run, now you became even more of a threat, right? Because now I know I can hit it and get on first. I can also knock it out the park, but because you got over your fear, now you actually just grew, right? Now I have two skills and I'm even better now with my team because now my team knows if we got to win, Herb can knock it out the park. And if we just got to get on base, Herb can get us on base. Like it doesn't matter now. So I think what I got out of your story is continue to push yourself to grow because you're only going to get better, which only helps your families, only helps the school, only helps kids. Keep pushing yourself. Don't just stay pat. I love it. Yeah.
You got it. You got it. But let me just emphasize this. I
Mm.
don't want it to get lost in the sauce. As leaders, we have to create that culture.
Yeah.
Again, as leaders, we have to create a culture where people are not afraid.
Yeah.
We have to, here we go. We have to connect and correct
Yeah.
instead of catching and punishing.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want people to write that down. We have to connect and correct instead of catch and punishing. Um, I was in a situation where I was down at the General Assembly a couple weeks ago because they're in session. I think they're just finishing crossover right now. And I was advocating for, teacher salary, making sure that the VDOE and the state puts money behind these mandates. Also in Surrey, we're really small, but we have dominion power. So we have something called a local composite index that's kind of skewed. Like we're 0.80, which means that the state only pays for 20% of our school budget and the
Right.
local government has to pay for 80%. But it's skewed because the tax rate is reflecting Dominion Power and the Surrey nuclear power plant
Gotcha.
being in our backyard. It's
Yeah.
not reflecting the farmers who live under the poverty line in Surrey, which is a whole nother probably podcast in itself. But I'm saying that to say that I was advocating for our students, and one of the politicians said we need to have a zero tolerance for vaping. Now, I agree, vaping is a problem. Vaping is bad. I do not think that any child should vape, period, nor do I think they should have vapes in school. But what I did say, and I think that some people were taken back, was I said we also need to understand why our students are vaping. And we also need to put in some social and emotional and some wellness supports. And especially in rural communities where there are no medical doctors, there is no therapist, there are no psychologists. I know in Caroline, the statistic was for every 3,721 individuals, there was only one mental health provider.
Wow.
Um, so, I'm looking at the statistics in Surrey, which is very similar. People have to go to Petersburg or go across the river to Jamestown, or wherever, maybe even Prince George. But I said, I know certain students who I've met and talked to said, Dr. Monroe, I take a hit of my vape because I have testing anxiety. And wouldn't you rather me come to school
Yep.
than to skip school because I'm so anxious about taking my test? And so I've had to work with students with these things and peel those layers back to say, well, instead of vaping, these are some things that we can do instead.
Mm.
So I don't know if some politicians were able to hear me because they were so taken back that I said my statement. We have to connect and correct before we catch and punish. They were all about punish, punish, punish.
Yeah.
But when we punish, it does not always cure or solve the problem. That's all that was the only point I was trying to make. But again, I don't think certain folks heard me because they stopped listening after I made my initial statement.
Well, can I ask you this going into that? 'Cause you've led at pretty much all levels. How do you build trust? How are you building trust now as the superintendent in Surrey, with the politicians, with your community, with your students? And then how have you done that all the way through to be able to push some of the things that you want to see?
Well, first and foremost, you have to treat people not only the way you want to be treated, but you have to treat people the way they want to be treated.
Yeah.
Y'all should write that down too. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, man. I mean, you know, it has taken me 32 years to learn some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is this: when I came to Surry, it don't matter whether or not I have more degrees than a thermometer. If I don't listen to the people,
Yeah.
if the people don't feel like they have a voice, then you're not a leader, because you're only a leader if people are willing to follow you. So the first thing, Matthew, that I've always done, whether I'm coming in as an assistant principal or whether a superintendent, is I do something called the 3 Ls. I look, I listen, and I learn. And when I came into Surry, I did my 3 Ls with students. I did my 3 Ls with all elected officials. I literally interviewed every board of director, every board of supervisor member, my school board members, and I interviewed former superintendents from Surry, former educators from Surry, pastors, um, key people that they told me were, key leaders in the community. I've gone to several churches, met with congregations. I have going to another church next Sunday. I met with parents. I put out surveys. Um, and then I met with all the bus drivers, all the
Yeah.
custodians, all of the part-time and support staff, um, cafeteria workers as well. And then what I did was I came up with an executive summary based on their feedback. And I said, listen, this is what you all said. And I said, this is where you all want to go. Now let's work together to create action items to get there.
Mm.
And that process was amazing, because I had people come up to me on the streets like, I didn't even know I could speak to the superintendent, or
Yeah.
I've never been in an environment where I actually felt like someone was listening to me.
Yeah.
I also do a what I call a team building activity, where I call this Weed the Garden, where I bring people into a room and I have a healthy plant, I have a plant that's dying, and then I have a plant that's all the way dead. And I say, tell me about Surry County. What are the great things? What are the celebrations? What are the traditions? And I have people do a whole brain dump on that column. And then I said, well, what are some things that need some TLC? What are some areas of growth? And then I said, as educators, if we're going to add new things onto the plate, what are some things that we can take off the plate? So I said, what are some things that are dead that we need to get rid of? And that was a very engaging exercise, where I've been able to put thoughts into action after even 30 days on the job, because there was some very low hanging fruit, that was real simple to just make a decision about some things. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
So yeah, those are some of the things, that I've done, on all levels, that have proven to be effective. And then we create something called an impact feasibility exercise, where you take all of your ideas and your solutions, and you say, well, is it high impact, and is it highly feasible? And if it meets that criteria, then those are the things you start with.
Okay.
You know, you know, for example, somebody might say, well, Dr. Monroe, it may be impactful, um, for our kids to have a more comfortable bus ride if all of the buses had air conditioning on it. That may
Gotcha.
be highly impactful, but we may not be able to afford it right now. It may not be
Yeah.
feasible. So in those situations, you have to say, well, okay, let's start with the two buses that have the longest run. Let's make sure those two buses have air conditioning. And then we work with our board of supervisors, and we get grants to say every year we're going to add two more buses with air conditioning based on those that have the furthest distance to travel each day. So that's kind of how
Gotcha.
you attack those things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Going back to the beginning, what? Because well, let me say this. First of all, I do think you need to write a book. I don't know if you've already written one yet. I think it needs to happen, because we could probably spend 2 hours, 3 hours. I know a thing that you used to tell me all the time that I remember: what you got to inspect, what you expect, right? Like that sits with me like all the time. So I'm always like, hey, if you're not going to be looking over the things that you expect, Matt, then you don't need to be expecting it, right? Like you're asking people to do stuff and you're not checking it. But if you're going to ask it, and then it's easier to do things when there are not so many expectations, right? I only got a certain amount of things that I'm going to ask you to do as the leader of the building. Other than that, let people be the professionals that they are, and then inspect those things. So if that we need to shift, then we shift. But that's something that I got from you. So that's what I mean by you need to write a book, because I think there's a reach even further, and I'm segueing into something. There's an even further reach that I think you can have with that. And the reason I say I'm segueing it is, why is mentorship, and you, because I think just as passionate as you are about kids and your communities, you are very passionate about pouring into the next group of leaders. Like, why is that so important to you?
Well, I will tell you, I think that education and educators have the most important job in the world, because everybody has to be taught. Whatever you do, you got
Right.
to teach. Whatever you
Yeah.
do. And I feel like we don't have time to make mistakes. Now, I know I said earlier, we need to create a culture where we can make mistakes without losing our dignity. But if you can help people to avoid making mistakes, then not only are you helping them, but you're helping everybody that they serve. And that's
Gotcha.
powerful to me. I've been blessed to have great people in my life, even outside of my parents, where I will say this: you need to stand on the shoulders of those that have gone before you. That is very important. I look at people like yourself. I know Naya Hamlet, for example. Naya was my Title I teacher at Lakeside. She became a superintendent before me. I love it. I love it. As you said, if you can coach someone or hire someone, and they go to a higher level than you need to be celebrating. You can't be drinking any haterade. You've
Yeah.
done your job, and you need to be celebrating. And really, I look at people like yourself. I treat y'all like we all had the same last name. You are family.
Yep.
And like my parents, my parents only goal for me and my sister and my brother was for us to do better than them.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, Matthew, I dedicated this last year to my dad, because my dad died at age 56 of a heart attack while he was principal at Laburnum Elementary. I made a promise to my mom that I was going to outlive my dad. And this past year, I dedicated my whole 56 year to my dad. And in November, just like 3 months ago, I turned 57. So I said
Yeah.
I outlived my dad. But what's most important, I was named superintendent of Surry County Public Schools on October 7th. I turned 57 on November the 9th. So I
Wow.
just felt like I made my dad proud. And there's even people that said, your dad is looking down on you right now and he's very proud of you. And I just say that to say, I look at you, I look at people like Nia Hamlet, I look at Quentin Ballard, who's now working at the Virginia Department of Education. I look at people like Ryan Stein, who is a high school basketball coach. He's killing it over at Greenwood. People now come to Greenwood Elementary to receive training on, the whole house system and everything. I look at people like James Gordon, who
Yep.
I was his mentor when he was a first year teacher. He didn't even know how to tie a tie. Now he's over at Glen Lee
Yep.
Elementary. In 1 year, he got that school accredited coming out of the city of Richmond. And I could probably name 50 more people. And it's not about naming folks, but what people have to understand is I get just as much fuel and energy from pouring into you guys. I feel like it's reciprocated back to me tenfold.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
each one, and a high tide raises all ships, man. So I
Yes,
feel
sir.
like I'm learning from you guys as you guys claim you're learning from me. Heck,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't even have a
Uh,
podcast. Look at you. I don't even have a podcast. Look at you.
but this is why, and again, this is why the podcast is necessary. And that's why I was so excited to have you on. Because again, you want to promote people who have one meant a lot to you, but also have something to say, right? Being honest, I don't want to put anybody on the podcast if they don't have anything that's worth telling, right? You again have the receipts on the work you've done, the time it's taken for you to get to this particular point, your why. all right, is very evident. So yeah, no, you're right. Each one of us in our own way from your coaching tree are now impacting other lives. So, and we're taking what you've taught us and it is going to live past you, right? And then impact other people. So a question I want to ask you though, because you're so high energy, you have so much passion. How does Dr. Monroe take care of Dr. Monroe?
Well, that's funny. That's a funny one. I'm gonna tell you, I personally there is no separation between church and state with me
Gotcha.
because I don't know how you can do this job without having faith
Yeah, sure.
or without prayer. I don't know you whoever you pray to
Yeah,
or whatever you believe in. I don't see how you can do this job without it. So I first and foremost, I pray and I give thanks. First and foremost. Secondly, I pay myself. My dad always said you got to pay yourself.
mm,
So what I do is I find ways to lift myself up
yeah,
mentally, physically, economically, socially, and emotionally. For example, I mentor young men. Why? Because it's something about that gives me self-actualization, and I feel as though I'm making myself better, making them better, and making the world a better place. So that fuels me. It fuels me to be around young people. The second thing I do is I love music. So I play in two bands as if I got time for that. But I find time to do the things that again make me physically, spiritually, and emotionally healthy. So I play in two bands. I play when I can, but I play in two bands. The other thing that I do is I've been eating better. I really have been watching what I put in my body because I've done some reading and research around that. And the older you get, the more important it is.
yes,
And,
sir.
one of my friends who's a trainer said, Doc, it's even more important. He said your diet is even more important than exercise at this point of your life. So, it's important to do all of those things, but he said what you put in your body is very important. And the other thing is, I have a beautiful partner and I only hang out with people who lift me up.
Gotcha.
I try to surround myself with people who are positive, who are optimistic, who have a sense of purpose. And I've also done, this is the big one because this is new for me. I've also given myself permission to take time off
Yeah.
and to vacation. Last year, I've been in this game for 32 years. I did not take a full week of vacation until last year. So it took me 30 years in education to take a whole week of vacation. It's kind of like hitting that home run. Guess how
Yep.
many weeks of vacation I've taken since I've done that the first time?
Oh,
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah, I'm about to say
Man,
you.
look, my friends tease me. They say, I don't know anybody that starts a new job and takes a whole week off. It is the best thing for us. And as educators, we have to unplug. That means you need to leave your computer in your car at the airport and get on the airplane and go and
Yeah.
go. Because what I found is while I'm on vacation, after about day 2, somehow I have this even heightened sense of energy and clarity in my brain. And I
Yeah.
come up with even more ideas.
Yeah.
I come up with even what I call aha moments.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I speak them into my cell phone
Mhm.
and then I email them to myself
Yep.
because I don't want to lose the idea. And then when I get back to work, I actually open up my email and I put some of those ideas into action. Yeah, man.
I used to watch you when we were at Enrico. You always, and I do it with myself now. You would have your pad. You'd have a
Yep.
little
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 pad.
pad. Yep. It would be that. And I remember watching, I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's what I start doing. So, and it helps because it would be things throughout the day that I'd be like, ooh, probably need to run that by such and such, or let me go make sure I check in on that student at the end of the day. And that's again something that, like you talked about, building that culture being under your leadership at Henrico High School, one of the things I learned how to do was just reading kids and adults' faces. Like we were just always reading faces because we knew if a student was coming off the bus, there might have been something that went on in the neighborhood. There might have been somebody that they're upset with or something was going on. And if you don't address that early on, it could be something where there's an altercation in a little bit. But if we were able to talk to the student coming off the bus, we realized, oh, this happened with this person's sister last night. These two kids are in the same school. Let me pull this one. Let me talk to him. You pull that one, you talk to him. Or we found out it was a misunderstanding, or we might need somebody that maybe this isn't the day to be in the building today because just something's about to go on. So that's something that learning from you is just of how to just read faces. And now I do that at school all the time. I'm always saying, good morning, how are you doing? Because then you see that in a staff member's face where they're always smiling and then today they're not. Then it's your job to ask them, hey, you okay? Do you need anything? And then, it might be a day where it's like, hey, you know what? I got your class. You go, take a break. I'm going to do the class. And then that's just building that cachet for later because now they're willing to do almost anything for you because you know that you really care about them.
Man, you hit on so many things that I don't even know if we have time to hit on, but all I can say is exactly. Where was I going with this? Because you said something.
So you starting to be like me when you talk. I'm like, man,
No. Like for example, what I wanted to say is you have to almost be three of yourself.
Yes.
And this is what I mean. People say, even the kids, Dr. Monroe, you're everywhere. You're everywhere. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, dude, I just saw you at the elementary school like an hour ago and now you're here. What I want people to understand is if you're not moving, you're dead.
Yeah.
You're dead. Yep. You cannot lead from behind a desk. You need to be in the trenches and you need to be where the action is. For example, in Surry, central office is not where the schools are. Our central office is in the government building, but the cool thing about Surry is all of our schools are on the same campus. The elementary is on one side of the street, high school's on the other, middle school's on the other, right? So what I do is I normally are in the buildings every day.
Yeah.
And I know at Henrico High School, I used to go into every single classroom, probably my first 6 months on the job. People thought I was trying to fire teachers.
Yeah.
Monroe was in my class again today. I think he's trying to get rid of me. No, I am just checking on everybody because I want to know the pulse of my school.
Right.
I want to know. And what was cool was I remember we had a kid cross the street from John Marshall. And I went directly to that student because he had made his way to the cafeteria. I said, who are you? What's your name?
I remember that. Yep.
And he was like, la, la, la. I said, man, you don't go. I don't know you. Are you new? You don't go. Come. You got to come with me. Come to find out, he wasn't even one of our students.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I said, I might not know all 1,700 students' names, but I know all 1,700 of my kids. And so that's how to operate.
That it just going with that because again, receipts. I know what he's talking about. I remember a situation we had there when I was with you, and I remember we were looking at the camera, and I did the same thing. Like it was I don't know if it was the same, so it might have been a different time because we had an outdoor campus, so it was easier to get on campus. But it was the same because we're always looking at kids' faces. There was a student who had come in, and I remember hearing I locked eyes, and I looked at him, and I said, "Hey, same way you did with this other student." I said, are you new here? And you could tell by the way he's answering, he couldn't answer. But the only reason we knew that is because we were literally saying, good morning, how are you, checking with kids all the time. So it was very hard, even on an outdoor campus, for someone to slide in. And it was like, hey, do you know such and such? Who is that kid? And then we didn't say, oh, well, the kid is here, let's just let him get. No, we would go up to the student, hey, how are you? Are you new? Yeah. When did you? So, but again, that's what you instilled in there. So we could go on forever. I'm gonna ask you three. Well, first off, let me ask you this question. Is there anything for our listeners that you feel like, hey, if you leave out of here and you stop listening, at least take this with you.
Yes, and I know what I'm about to say now because you and James have a very similar look. You need to have the evidence and artifacts of outstanding leadership to the level that you can dress the way you want to dress, wear your hair the way you want to dress, and carry yourself in a professional manner without having to succumb to the way that society wants you to dress, wants your hair to be. And I'm so proud of you and James Gordon because I'm going to be honest with you, and I want the listeners to listen close.
Yeah.
When I was mentoring James Gordon, when he was a teacher at Mount Vernon Alternative School in Henrico, James told me that one day he wants to be a principal. And I told James he would never be a principal with those cornrows in his hair and wearing jeans on a Friday and wearing a t-shirt to school, even though it was the spirit wear, because my father told me I have to wear a collared shirt. I don't wear jeans to school, and my hair has to be a certain way. And I am so glad that I am wrong because what I did tell James is I said, James, we have to be twice as good to go twice as far. And I said, you have to be so good and do things so well that you might have to be a first in order to wear your hair that way or to be able to dress the way you want to. Because believe it or not, kids don't judge you on that. They can feel whether or not you love them and whether or not you have their back. And parents eventually will too. And I'm just going to say this to say that it was true for me because I actually played baseball for Lakeside Little League. And at the time, my father would not allow me to play in the Lakeside neighborhood because of the level of Confederate flags and the racism in that community. However, 24 years later, I became principal of Lakeside Elementary. And the reason why I became principal of Lakeside Elementary, Mr. Pike, my high school principal, who was the principal of Lakeside, called me and said, Herbie, our community has changed. We have basically gone from 95% white to 42% African-American in just 4 years, and we are the lowest performing school in Henrico County. And they need a cheerleader and somebody that can bring the community together. And I think you're the right person for the job. I did not get the job the first time. I went to Chesterfield, became assistant principal at Falling Creek, where we turned that school around and got it accredited in 1 year. The next year, I came back to Lakeside and I became the principal. And we were able to bring that community together so that in 2 years, we were the first national Title I school of the year for Henrico Public Schools. Now, I'm saying that not to impress folks, but to impress upon folks that I almost had to do something with my team to a level to where people would start to accept me as an equal.
Yeah.
And I know James has done the same thing where, you know, he's been able to go to Oakno, Belmead, and Richmond and get them to a level they've never gotten before. And it took that, and I'm going to say it took that to finally give him his nod to be a principal, because James, like a lot of other leaders, was never named principal until he had to go somewhere else and prove himself. I had to do the same by going to Chesterfield, and then I was given a chance. So the moral to the story of this, if you are not able to get what you want or what you deserve based on your evidence and artifacts, you have to have the courage to go somewhere else and get it.
Yeah.
And going somewhere else to get it is not a bad thing because they need you to. T.O. So I just took me a while to get there, but I am happy because, Matt, it looks like you are being the best you that you can be. And that's what people want, and that's what people need. The same is true with my white brother from another mother, Ryan Stein over at Greenwood, who I would speak to monthly. James Gordon is knocking it out of the box. Quentin Ballard is doing great things. And I just want to tell all of you all that I'm so happy because maybe in about 6 or 7 years, maybe 10, I might decide to retire. And I know that my grandkids are in a good place because there's people like you still in education. So I thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir. Let's go ahead and end this thing off. I got 3 quick questions for you, and I'm very interested to hear what you say. What is a book that you feel like every leader just needs to have? They need to read it. This it's just one. So I know most time when I ask people, they're like, "Look, I got like 5 of them." But what's the one you're like, you got to read this one? Period.
Um, Sam Glenn's You Have to Grow Through What You Go Through.
Okay.
You have to grow through what you go through because I'm not going to lie, there has been many situations and times through my 32-year career in education where I was basically saying to myself, why in the hell am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I was ready to give it up.
Yeah.
But somehow I stood the course, and I thank God that I did, because like right now, man, I literally feel like I had to go through what I went through
Right.
to be
Right.
where I am right now today, man. So yeah, I know you got 2 more questions, but I'm gonna stop right there. You have to grow through what you go through. I believe it's Sam Glenn. Yep.
Okay. Yes, sir. 5 dinner guests, dead or alive. 5 dinner guests, dead or alive. If you could bring 5 dinner guests and sit with them, and not including you, so it's you plus 5, who would you pick?
That are still alive?
Oh, it could be dead or alive. You could pick anybody, and they could sit at the table, and you could just have dinner with them.
Wow. The first person I would say is Oprah Winfrey,
Okay.
only because every interview that I've had for a job, somebody asked me, who would you want to meet? I said, I want to do something so amazing for kids that Oprah Winfrey invites me to be on her TV show to
That's what's up.
share what I did. So I'm going to stick with Oprah Winfrey because that's been a standard.
Yeah.
Also, I would like to have dinner with former President Obama.
Okay.
Because I don't know how you navigate the politics. I'm still working through that. I also want to have Denzel Washington at the table, only because people ask me, Doc, if you weren't an educator, well, what would you be? I wanted to be an actor, man. After my
Yeah.
11th grade teacher connected with me, I started performing all over. You see me performing all the time, man, right? Right. So I want to meet like a famous, actor like Denzel. I looked at Denzel. I thought that was significant. Another person, that I would love to have dinner with is I would love, and I'm about to start crying. I would love to have dinner with my dad now, just so we can kind of talk about all the things that have happened since he's been gone.
Yeah.
And number 5, number 5 would probably be somebody from the deep past that it's kind of a tie, man, because I kind of want to talk to like a Ruby Bridges or like a Harriet Tubman,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to understand how 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 could you find joy and happiness at such a time in your life?
Oof. Okay. Yeah. That's
You know what I
powerful.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 that would be an incredibly, like, I feel like that would be a table with a ton of laughs and so much information, like that, like would tug at your heart regularly. You got Obama, you got Oprah, you got, whether that's Harriet Tubman or Ruby Bridges, you had Denzel Washington,
yeah,
and then
Denzel,
your
yeah,
father there. Oh man, that would be crazy.
yeah,
Um,
that would be awesome.
last question is, who would you want to see on the podcast? But it's got to be somebody you can help us get. So who would you like to see on? But it's somebody you can help us connect to and get on here.
I've mentioned 3 names, and I think all three need to be on. I'm gonna say
Okay.
Ryan Stein because
Right.
one thing that I've found through my research, and even in my dad's experience, my dad went to jail for going into a restaurant for white people only when he was in high school. And when he got out of jail, he decided to become a teacher so that his kids wouldn't have to go through what he went through because
Mm,
he wanted to teach all kids to love each other. But one thing that my parents always told me that if we want to um, solve this racism in the country, you need white people to stand up as much as black people are standing up.
yeah.
It's not going to happen by black people doing it all by ourselves. And Ryan Stein started an organization that we all call Leading from Inside. And it was Ryan, a white man's idea to
No.
get brothers together, get black brothers in education together to talk about what we can do to bring more brothers into the educational environment. So Ryan Stein is a key player. James Gordon, I think, is phenomenal. He has done the impossible, and
Yeah.
people wonder how he's able to do what he's doing at Glen Lee. When that school was not accredited since Dr. McQueen was there, he turned that thing around in 1 year and is just building strength in the community. He's one. I think Quentin Ballard is one, as Quentin went to Hanover and he was their principal of the year and end up winning the state award for instructional leadership um, as a principal at a middle school in Hanover County Public Schools. So you got some players in those three
Yeah.
guys. I think all
Yeah.
three would be outstanding guests on your show.
I appreciate it. Well, look, everybody, this is the end. I'm gonna be honest, I don't want it to end. I have the pleasure, though, of being able to call Dr. Monroe when I need to and get any more wisdom. So hopefully, you have somebody in your life who is your Dr. Monroe, who is pouring into you. If you don't have a mentor, please find one. I think that's one of the most important things you can do is just have someone you can let your hair down, talk to, and someone who can talk honestly to you so that there are times when, yes, it is good to be able to share your issues. You also need somebody who can tell you, all right, it's time to get up. All right, you good? You'll make it. All right, let's get up. Let's keep on moving. And this is one of the individuals who was like that for me. So everybody remember, this is Hot Conversations with School Leaders. Every Thursday we'll be dropping episodes. And I'm looking forward to being with you again. Again, Dr. Monroe, thank you. And
Thank you.
everybody, we love you. Keep leading.
Swing for the fence.